Previously, the group decided to push through the night until they reached Silt Shadow, rather than stopping to make camp in a praetor-infested swamp with an army heading their way. As they traveled, Oz and Zaya had a mental conversation where Oz told her a bit more about his history with Alonzo. Zaya, being Zaya, all that did was make her trust Alonzo even less than she already did. When they got close to Silt Shadow, they stopped as they realized it would probably be suspicious to just head straight towards the gates in the middle of the night while, in the middle of a war zone. Zaya sent a message to Elder Xian, who was thrilled to hear that they were there, especially when she confirmed that Yara and Enola were with them. He said he'd meet them at the gates. Zaya, Oz, and Sean headed to the gates first, just to be sure it wasn't a trap. Once they were certain everything was what it appeared, the others joined them. Elder Xian told Taria that her mother was eagerly waiting for her, and then he led them into the town. They made their way to the Circle, which is what they were using to magically ferry as many people as possible out of Silt Shadow before the Praetors attacked. It was very clear that House Mirkwood had brought almost all of its soldiers into the town, as well as the Shadowfen Reavers, their elite guard. The group was led into a building surrounded by guards and taken into a stone chamber. It was full of everyday citizens, or at least that's what someone would think if it wasn't for the blatant magecraft being cast by almost everyone in the room, from the oldest to the youngest. Taria was clearly nervous, especially when Elder Xian said her mother must have just taken a group away to an echo plane and would therefore be back soon. To the surprise of no one, insight is not always her strongest skill. Elder Xian made a speech about the group, and Zaya chimed in to comment that they would all endure, despite the Empire saying that they were wrong for being magecraft users. Around that time, the platform in the middle of the room began to glow, and Taria's mother, Esther, appeared. She was drenched in sweat and looked exhausted, but she was clearly thrilled to see Taria. There was lots of crying and hugging as they reunited, especially when her mother told her that the rest of their family was safe. Meanwhile, Elder Xian handed Zaya a diamond worth 1,000 gold as payment. She talked to him a little about Tornak's death and asked if he had any ideas. He suggested that the Dawnbringers might be able to help, as it sounded as if Tornak either didn't want to return, or something was preventing him from returning. He then mentioned that the group needed to meet with House Mirkwood, and Zaya waved Sean over since she was the one who knew nobles. Sean wasn't as close to any of the members of that house as she was some of the other noble families, but she knew the basics. Elder Xian suggested that the group and Esther get some sleep, and they were led off to a nearby houseboat to rest. Before everyone turned in, Esther provided more details about just what had happened with Taria's family. Long story short, she made a deal with pirates who attacked the prison boat they were on and rescued them. She also told Taria more about the stone tablets she'd been using, as Esther had some as well, and it turned out that they were originally made by the giants. While everyone else slept, Keelan experimented with alchemy and accidentally blinded himself. As you do. Luckily, there were multiple people in the group who could help with that, so Talk fixed his eyes the next morning. The group had a relatively peaceful day. They went shopping and bought some items that they thought might be useful. Sean caught up on reading the past copies of the newspaper, looking for important information on current happenings in the Empire, and then they all met back up at the end of the day. And that is where we left off.